The brain needs oxygen for attention. Just like a high-performance sports car needs high-octane fuel in order to run at its peak. And just sitting in a chair, sitting at a desk doesn't give the brain a lot of oxygen. But movement does. But there are a number of very healthy chemicals that come in when you're moving. So from a molecular basis, you get oxygen when you move. And if you have about 20 minutes of active learning, and I like to put the music and dance up front every hour. If you have about 20 minutes, you have about 20 minutes of optimal brain attention and retention. You also get more glucose, which is the food for the brain. The brain eats it up. Glucose gives you the retention. But you get the fertilizer that goes by the letters B, D, and F, brain-derived neurotropic factor. It's also, I just call it best darn nerve fertilizer, B, D, and F. And you build more brain cells when you're moving. You build more connections on the brain cells, and you build more receptors on the connections of the brain cells. Just like fertilizing a field, you get a higher yield. Moving your body and putting this into the brain makes your brain ready to learn and just much more receptive. And at the same time, you wash away the toxic stress hormone cortisol, and cortisol literally shrinks the brain. Now, you need a certain amount of cortisol just to get up in the morning. There's a balance between the cortisol that comes to get you ready for the day and the melatonin that comes that gives you a little bit of sleep. But too much cortisol is toxic and it kills baby neurons. So whatever it is you just learned today, if it's a brand new thing that you just learned, those nerve cells have less a chance of surviving and thriving if there's too much cortisol. Studies will show about 20 minutes will give you 20 minutes of pure attention. So I would put the good fuel in all the time, and then I would take breaks. If you want to visualize this for other teachers in your school, take a bottle of water and unscrew the tap, the top, and ask them the question, can I pour this whole bottle into this cap? And they'll say, no, you can't pour that whole bottle into this cap. You'll just waste a bunch. It'll overflow. Well, talking to kids without letting them absorb it is like pouring all the water from the bottle into the cap. They're only going to absorb so much. But if you pour a little, sip a little, pour a little, sip a little, pour a little, sip a little, this is a very good visual for you to do it. Do it right in front of people. You can absorb all of that, but not just all at once. And the brain is only going to take so much in before you have to do something with it. Why should I pay this valuable currency unless I think I'm going to get something out of it, right? Pay attention. You have to give them a reason to pay attention, right? Well, movement boosts memory, enhances both attention and long-term retention. And Dr. Rady gives us 4 different levels where BDNF and movement helps us do that. First, it optimizes your mindset, which improves alertness, attention, and motivation. It's like, why should I learn this thing? Why should I learn? This is stupid. I don't want to pay my non-renewable resource attention, right? I'm not going to pay this, but wait a minute. It kind of opens the kid before it opens the book. You got to open the kid before you open the book. Why should I pay attention? You got to set the stage before the curtain rises, right? Movement prepares and encourages nerve cells to bind to one another and bond to one another, which is the cellular basis for logging in and encoding new information. Your brain literally sets a little tag. This is a good one. Keep this one for memory. We're going to tag this one for memory. Movement spurs the development of new nerve cells from the stem cells in the hippocampus. The hippocampus. The Greeks saw this little thing that looked like a seahorse in the brain, and they call it hippo, the word for horse, like hippopotamus. Hippopotamus is the river horse, right? They saw this little thing that looked like a hippo, like a seahorse, and it was at the campus of this horse, and they didn't know what it did, but we do now. If you're going to have any long-term learning, both short-term scratch pad and long-term hard drive, You got to get the hippocampus to order up the new baby nerve cells. It says, hey, this is new. It might be helpful. Here comes the baby. Hook it up to something that you already knew, and that's going to give you a better shot. And movement improves cognitive flexibility, which is the ability to brainstorm creatively. And if you want attentive, retentive, creative, collaborative kids, why wouldn't you use movement? There's two key molecules that are going to be important here, along with oxygen and glucose. One is norepinephrine. Now, epinephrine is alertness drug, right? Norepinephrine opens the capillaries, the tiny, tiny little blood vessels at the end of each blood vessel to feed every cell individually. And when you get norepinephrine, you get more attention, perception, motivation, and arousal. Would you like kids who have attention, better perception, better motivation? Open the kid before you open the book. And arousal, it's like, oh, I want to be a part of this. Movement does that. And of course, movement gives you dopamine, which is reward, more attention, movement. And when dopamine has worked its magic, it also has a calming effect. Dopamine also boosts your immune system, so you have less chance of getting a cold, less chance of, a cut getting infected, less chance of COVID, less chance of anything if you can bolster the dopamine. Because norepinephrine opens the capillaries, it gives more blood to the brain. Because dopamine is a pleasure drug, it says, I want more of this. Imagine a classroom full of kids kind of like, give me more, I want more, I want more. You can have. How old were you when you learned to ride a bike? Well, here's an odd thing. You can learn to ride a bike when you're 4 years old, 5 years old. It's a very complex thing. We're not born knowing how to ride a bicycle, okay? It involves major muscle groups like your legs, your arms. It involves the sense of balance in the inner ear, the ciliated epithelial cells, the inner gyroscope. It involves your sight and your depth perception. You have to be aware, you have to pay attention or you're going to crash. It involves the emotions. And the first time you're able to kind of get on your bike and move, yay, good job, good job. The emotional connection and the pleasure drug. It involves major muscle groups, minor muscle groups, emotional connections, balance. It involves all of these parts of the brain that wire together. And remember Hebb's law, neurons that fire together, wire together, and all of these complex systems. Now, Annie Patel at the Neuroscience Institute wrote the book Music, Language, and the Brain. And I asked him, what is the mind once, when I first met him. And he said the mind is the brain meets the body meets the environment. If you're going to be an effective neurologist as a teacher, and you decide everything I teach is going to connect the entire mind, I'm going to get the brain, as many areas of the brain as possible connected to this. I'm going to sing it, I'm going to dance it, I'm going to rhyme it, I'm going to draw it, I'm going to, every possible part of the brain I can possibly do. And then I'm going to get the body involved with this learning. Even if I make up silly signs for this phrase or this equation or whatever it is we're trying to teach, I'm going to get the body involved in the learning. I'm going to have kids slap, slap, and say the thing. Slap, slap, and say the thing. Lactic acid bacteria, lactic acid bacteria. When under anaerobic conditions, converts lactic acid to pyruvic acid, and that's how you get kimchi, whatever. Anytime you connect the body to the learning, you're going to have all those other arrays going on. You're going to get closer to the mind, the brain, the body, the environment. I'm going to pause and make each kid pair up, and you have to teach this person. You have to make up some movements with this person, and they have to mirror back the movements. The brain has certain neurons called mirror neurons that will mimic whatever the other person did. If the kid is, if they're going to work in pairs, I'll say something, you say something, I'll say something, you say something. Or find the tallest person in the room and the shortest person and put them together. Get in a line, get in a row. Now turn to the person near you and tell them the 3 most important things we learned in the last 20 minutes. Ready? Go. Okay? Come on back. Get 2 on 2, get 4 on 4. Now you tell the other 2 what your partner said was the most important thing. And you tell the other 2 what your partner said was the most important thing. And back and forth. So now we have 4 important things. Maybe some of them are the same. And now we'll come to the group and we're going to act out those 4 important things. You have 20 minutes to get your show and tell ready together. And you're going to interact with the other people. You have to make up a rap, a song, a chant, a cheer, a beat. You have to make up a piece of art. You have to do something to visualize those 4 things that we want to learn. And you're going to teach the class show and tell for the last 20 minutes of the class. If they're engaging...
Can I say something?
Yes.
Okay. Well, like 25 years ago or so, I worked with kids that had disability difficulties in learning to read, and it was very hard for them. So and they were, so we rapped it. Okay, so we gave the rap beat while reading, and that's how they learn to read. Any text. That's how I learn. I teach how to read kids that had a lot of difficulty of reading, learning how to read. They were 11, 12 years old. They were big, and they were very frustrated, not having the ability to read, and that's how they learned. We wrapped it, and it was amazing.
Why
so
did
25 years ago?
So you were a neurologist 25 years ago, whether you knew it or not.
No, it was intuitive, and now I'm learning what was behind that was very intuitive. So
Very good, very good.
thank you.
So music, motion, emotion, brain, body, environment. If you think this is not a class, this is a performance studio, because I want to get them completely engaged, right? Engaged. All right, brain, body, environment. Now, up above the left ear, everybody point to your left ear. Up above the left ear, there are 2 areas that really have important connection to sound. You have the linguistic and you have the phonics area of the brain. And that's why, by the way, if somebody has damage on the left side of their brain, they often have speech problems or reading problems, okay? If they get hurt on the left. The linguistic and phonics centers of the brain up above the left ear. Point to your right brain. Your right brain has more big picture pieces. It has more visual pieces. It has more gestalt, the whole in mind. But anytime you connect the left and the right, here are the words, and here is the giant experience I'm having with it. Anytime, now put your hands together over your head. There's a big body of nerves that connect the left and the right hemisphere. The Latin word is the corpus callosum. Corpus, body, callosum, big. Here's your big body of nerves. Anytime you can wire and fire both of these areas of connections, you have a better chance of the attention and the retention. By the way, men have 4 more ounces of brain than women, but they don't have as many connections, so it often doesn't do them any good. Women have a larger corpus callosum, a larger connection between the left and the right brain. But you can grow this bigger connection with the boys if you connect both sides of the brain in what you're doing. Okay, brain, body, and environment. If indeed the brain meets the body meets the environment is the whole mind, and you leave the body out of learning, you're losing a third of your mind before you even start. If indeed the mind is the brain meets the body meets the environment, and you're not connecting the environment into the learning, the other person, the visuals, you're losing another third of your mind. You've just lost 2/3 of your mind before you start if you're only talking to them. If you're leaving the brain, the body, and the environment out, you've lost 2/3 of your mind before you even start. Come on, folks, we want to do that. But it is even worse because the linguistic and phonics centers only make up a part of the left brain. So you're probably only really teaching a very small part of the brain if you don't connect the brain to the body, to the environment in your teaching. Okay. What happens when you add music and movement, like the rap that you did? The beat and the pitch and the timbre and the movement. If you put a music and movement, you have overlap, precision, emotion, connection, attention, retention across the entire brain, and you connect it to the body, to the environment. And that's why I got rid of desks and chairs. Whenever I would go and do an experiment, we put a nice little patty floor in there, and we're dancing and singing. And with about 20 minutes of movement, then it's time to hydrate, because your lungs are made, absorb oxygen. Your lungs are made mostly of water. Time to hydrate. And now you have them. You really have them. And then now if you want to sit down and try to learn something and talk about what you just learned, or get in small groups and process what you just learned, and have every group come up with a question, have every group come up with a dance or an answer, all of that is going to be really helpful. Age group. It's a whole lot easier to do it with little children because the administrators will give you more freedom with active learning with the little children. The question is, as a neurologist, when is the time to sit? You have to get something in and then do something with it. That's the kind of what the rich concept is. Recognize, identify, comprehend, harness. You have to recognize something. You have to get something in, and especially if it's new information. And you have to comprehend what it has to do with everything else you're doing, and then you have to put it to work. As a neurologist, when is it time to sit? Not when you're learning new information. Because you want that new information, K and K2, you want the new to really connect with something you already knew so that you know it. You want it to connect with as many possible overlapping, precise, emotional, repeated connections. You want to connect with all these arrays all through the brain, the body, and the environment. And the richer the input, the richer the output. The richer the input, the richer the connections and creativity. The richer the input, the richer the attention and retention. Confidence, competence. And if collaboration is thrown, so the brain, the body, and the environment, I will be biased. You're going up against centuries of what we thought was proper education. Everyone sits in a desk while the teacher lectures, and you listen and you write notes and you regurgitate, and then you take the test. Then you can go to the next level. We think that's what proper education is. But when in human history did sitting in a desk show up for learning? It is a relatively new concept. We think that's proper. Everybody's in their little rows. Everybody's little. But what have the results been? We have cities in America, like Baltimore, where children graduate high school without being able to read or do basic math. We have cities where 80% of the senior class isn't scoring at the minimum. We worked in South Carolina, where 2 or 3 kids would excel in spite of the school system, and 60% were just bored to tears and wanting to drop out. If you add this active learning, the dropout rate disappears. They want to be there because they're getting all the dopamine and the learning and the fun. So I would put the question back with you. What can you get away with in your school? Maybe they won't let you get rid of the desks, but would they let you push them to the side for the first 20 minutes? And let's create something together. Let's have an active thing. And now, okay, go ahead and sit if you want to. I don't even let kids read sitting in desks. If you're going to be reading, you're going to be moving because your brain's going to be paying more attention. Okay, let's read out loud together. You take this sentence, I take every other one. Go in pairs, read back and forth. Now get your two pairs together in another two pairs. What was important to you? What was important to you? Now create something with it. Now everybody teach everyone. The most important education book in my life, aside from all the little children's books my mother read me every night, the most important education book was a book called The Quality School. And Bill Glasser said, in a quality school, everyone is the teacher. In a quality school, everyone is the teacher. And if I'm the only teacher in this classroom, I have to be better than TikTok. I have to be more entertaining than television. I have to be more up and animated and crazy than commercials on TV. MTV got famous 30 years ago, 20 years ago, because it would go from a clip to a clip to a clip to a clip. Sometimes they would cut the seconds in thirds. Bum, 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 bum. Can you be that as a teacher? Can you be more entertaining than TikTok? No, you're going to die. You're going to be exhausted. Don't even play that game. I am not going to compete with TikTok. I am not going to compete with social media. I'm not going to be the only teacher in this room. I can't do it. I will be dead. So I'm going to make them the teachers. I'm going to make them teach themselves. And just like a curator in a museum, you put certain things in certain places, in certain orders to lead the eye toward where you want them to go. The great teacher will have the children lead themselves to where she or he wants them to go, right? So I'm going to put the pieces in place, and I'm going to put them in place on a molecular, a cellular, a bodily, and an environmental basis so that great learning happens and great creativity happens, and they're all teaching themselves. That's what I'm going to try to do. Now, there are 3 techniques that we did today. One was we had a movement every 7.5 minutes, right? You can do that. The second, I think, learning would be is make them in charge of their own learning. By teaching them something so they have something to recognize and identify, letting them work together in 1-on-1 and then 2-on-2, 4-on-4 small groups, and show and tell. And third, we know that movement gives the brain epinephrine, norepinephrine, oxygen, glucose, BDNF, and it washes away the stress. So the kid wants to be there. And if you put movement and music together, you open the kid before you open the book. And they will pay their most priceless currency, attention, because they're in charge. You may be bored if you're in a class and the teacher isn't entertaining. You're never bored when you're the teacher. You're just not bored. And it'll be a richer environment for everybody.
I'm really excited about today's lesson because as you were talking, as the session was ongoing, I was trying to put everything we've learned so far together and see how this works for the children that I teach. Like where you said, at first we learned that every lesson has a music to go with it, which is very nice. I was trying to see myself bringing new songs into the teaching process. And then the second, you're talking about movement. I'm trying to look at how, okay, for me, I'm a teacher of language. I teach the English language, how I can merge the songs, the movement, and then with the level of learners that I teach. So, and then you also said something very important, the NK2, which I find very interesting, which is something I'm going to try using because I'm learning this for practicing, not just the theory base. So my question is, how long does a lesson that will apply all of this method take? For a normal lesson here, we take 45 to 50 minutes to teach a lesson. So in practicalizing this, all these steps we've looked at, how long does a lesson is a lesson going to last? And secondly, for a subject like English and then mathematics and quantitative. I don't know if you can do a more practical approach to how we're going to achieve the music, the movement, and then opening the child's brain before even opening the book, so that it's going to be a all practical aspect for me or any other teacher who is interested to do this.
Right. Very good questions. If you have 45 minutes, I would break it into thirds. I would have 15 minutes of very active learning, 15 minutes of small group time creating a reflection on what they just learned, and 15 minutes where everybody taught what they learned, show and tell kind of thing. What age group are you working with?
6 to 8 years.
Yeah, it's a brilliant time. It's a brilliant time. So if you create the first 6 upfront experiences, so they see what the first 6 lessons can be, and then you do 15 minutes and everybody's up, you're singing, you're dancing. You could say, okay, first kid in the first row, give me a beat. Second kid, give me a movement. Give me a third movement. Third kid, put the beat and the music, give me a pitch or a little melody. Whatever. Fourth kid, okay. Okay, now here I'm going to put the lesson that we're learning to spell in a rap today or something. And if you model it the first time, or you could come in with your own and just do it if you want, but the next 6 weeks, if they have to create it in small group, okay, they create it and teach each other, you only have 15 minutes to create this. What was important about the lesson? Do you usually use visuals up front of any kind? Do you have the words?
Yes, sometimes.
Words on the board,
Yes.
Draw me something that looks like, whatever it is I'm teaching, and create art, sketch, doodle, stuff like that. Next time we get together, we'll talk about how to apply art to all of this, and then how to put the music, dance, and art together as theater. But I would break things into 15 minutes if you have 45 minutes. If you have a whole hour, it could be 18, 18, 18, and then quiet mindfulness. Close your eyes, think of what we just learned, play some beautiful soft music, take some deep breathing exercises before moving on to the next thing. I'm not against mindfulness. In fact, there's a great memory consolidation drug that kicks in, and there's some reason to visualize and just be quiet at the end and soak it in and think about it. So first session was all about the music, overlap, precision, emotion, attention. This one was all about why do you add movement. And next time we meet, we'll put the art into it and the theater. Because if you have music, motion, and art, it's automatically theater. And for those of you who have superintendents or administrators who don't want all of this, tell them, just give me 6 weeks, and a 7th week we'll do a show, and I'll show you how fast these kids can learn if we teach the way the brain learns neurologically.